Carl, Toffel, are you guys new Magic players?
Yes.
No.
Oh, well, for Carl, this is a great video. And for you, it might be too, because if you're a new Magic player, we'll show you the top 5 ways to get into this hyper-complex game in an easy way. If friends of you recently introduced you to Magic, you're in for a good time, because this game's awesome. If you want to introduce your friends to Magic, still, you can stay here because I've got 5 good ways to do so. To start things off, I'd like to mention that this is technically like a top 5 list, but each of these entries is just made for a different situation and for different expectations of you or your friends. So let's start us off with the first product, which is Game Nights or the starter kits that are available. Game Nights is a product that costs you 30 euros and it comes with like 5 pre-constructed decks, rules, and everything you need to already play, right? Like one-stop shop. There's 5 decks inside because, you know, there's 5 colors in Magic and you can pick the one that you, I don't know, vibe with the most. I mean, you probably, as a new player, you probably don't know what each of them like represent and stuff. But if you're not 5 people or you don't want to spend 30 euros to get into a game, you can spend like 10 on a starter kit. Those are like the best way. If you know nothing about Magic, a starter kit has 2 decks, rules, like they're very simple. You can just learn to play, really.
So if you just played a bit with your friends, you went to your friend's house, you played some games of Commander, you're like, I want to have some cards of my own. I want to maybe play with my flatmate, but I don't really want to invest in a complicated deck or deck build. You recommend this?
Yes, absolutely. Like also, if you still need to learn the rules, the cards are simple. This is the bottom line. Like if you don't want anything else, go with this.
Now, let's imagine you've mastered Game Nights. You're a Sir of Magic now.
Ooh, a game night.
The next, very good. The next step is then number 4, to maybe build your own decks. So many of you might not know, you can buy 100 commons for under €1. You can buy 100 uncommons for under €2. And if you want to spice up your new decks, 50 rares for under €5. So in total, not even €7 for cool, big sealed deck practice that you can play with your friends.
So do you know the cards you're getting in there?
No, that's the chance. It's like opening a mega booster.
I mean,
with so many cards.
You're never actually like getting big money cards, right? Because
don't expect to make a good deal. They have been pre-selected. You're not playing a lottery where you sometimes win the mana.
You're getting a very high quantity of cards and fun cards at that, especially at like the rare level. You get interesting cards from recent sets and like scattered all across, you know, the Magic universe. And then you can really get to deck building because you've got so many cards for like 10 years. That's cheaper than the starter kit, right?
Yeah.
And you get more cards from it that you can experiment
It's less
with.
than 2 booster packs.
Yeah, it's crazy
like
good value
cards.
if you're really interested in like...
Oh, and it's a cool deck building challenge because you get to look at this pile of a few hundred cards and get your brain going and try to see what you want to build with it.
Yeah, then you can figure out what your favorite color is, what things you like, and then maybe you buy another round of this and you can upgrade your decks again. So you see how your deck evolves from being a medium powerful deck to a more powerful deck.
So far what we talked about was not official Magic formats, right?
What do you mean buying bulk on Cardmarket and play is not an official?
Like usually there's like restrictions to which cards you can play and how often you can play them, yada yada. And one of the most popular ones right now is Commander. And that leads us to our number 3. Because on the market, there are these starter Commander decks that are built to be like basic to professional Magic players or like people who've played for longer. But to start out, they're really powerful and honestly really nice to play.
Yeah, and it's true that Commander can be really daunting because you show up at your friend's house, you play a game of Commander. Okay, there's 100 different cards that you don't know, but this deck is made for you. And you want to go make your own Commander deck, and there's 30,000 cards. So you don't know what to put in it. It's really confusing. What's good in Commander or not. What's even legal. So this is a really easy way to have a deck made.
And Commander is a format based on the fact that you can only play 1 copy of each card. So every card does something different and has different text. So usually I wouldn't recommend a completely new player Commander to start out with. But if your group of friends is playing Commander and you want to join them and learn Magic that way, then these starter Commander decks are so good because they feature cards that aren't as text heavy, right? Plus upside, they are framed as like starter Commander decks, so they're actually cheaper than the regular precons they release. It's like 20 euros for one.
Ooh.
Okay. Okay.
Do I have your attention?
No, can you do that? Yes, please.
I go again. I pulled out the Cardmarket flag because we're going to talk about my favorite format. Do you like having infinite fun?
Yes.
Do you like not spending a lot of money for it?
I love that.
What am I buying? You have my money.
Well, so after you have tried Commander and you've been like, oh, maybe I'd like to play a little bit more competitively, or even if I want to play more optimized decks with my friends, I want to play more than one of each card, there's one format that's just waiting to hold you in its arms, and it's Pauper.
I expected nothing less from you, Carl.
Look at this card. Is this card powerful?
Yes, very powerful.
Oh yeah, it's 1 mana, 4 damage. Look at this one, Gurmag Angler. Does that seem really good to you?
That's a 1 mana 5/5,
What about
Carl.
Muldrifter and Sunscape Familiar?
Wow, those are really powerful cards.
Imagine you could play all of those cards and not spend more than a board game for it. Nay, you could spend 10 to 15 euro for a deck.
But like Pauper, like you're framing it as a joke, but it's like a really, people play it like really competitively.
When people I know play casual Magic and then they want to get into it more, maybe they say, hey, I'd like to go to an event. Maybe I'd like to play an actual deck, maybe something a little bit better. I always recommend Pauper because it's played on so many wide levels. You can play it hyper competitively. You can fly around to events with hundreds of people, play at the highest levels.
I mean, the online competition is super fierce for the format, right?
Or you could just play it with your friends at home. The best thing about this is, I would recommend this for Legacy, for example, which is a format where you can play almost all the cards printed because the decks are very expensive if you want to make them well. A Pauper deck, the best, most competitive Pauper decks are 40, 50 euro.
How do they remain so cheap?
Because you can only play commons, and that's the trick. As long as a card was printed once at the common rarity, you get to play it. And the neat thing about this is in Wizards' design philosophy, they don't make commons that complicated. But yet there's some very powerful cards. Lightning Bolt, 1 mana, 3 damage, very simple card, yet very powerful. So you get to play these really optimized decks, these powerful spells, but in an environment that is not overwhelming. The games feel like kind of older Magic, yet you still get to play stuff like Brainstorm, Counterspell.
You're right in that it does have a wide variety. Like sometimes colleagues play Pauper in the kitchen after work, but then also sometimes people play Pauper at like a convention hall with 1,000 people in it. And I mean, yeah, at that price, you can't really turn down the experience.
I'd recommend Pauper. If you're looking around, go on mtggoldfish.com, Pauper metagame, look at the top ones, click on one, you can put it in the shopping wizard and Cardmarket, and it's the price of a board game, and you have a competitive Magic the Gathering deck that you can fly to events and potentially win with.
Now, moving through our list today, we've strayed a bit from like the entry-level product for someone who doesn't know how to play Magic, right? Like we've arrived at Pauper.
You don't stray to Pauper, you are called to Pauper.
Of course.
Yes.
I'll take this one step further and I'll disclaim this by saying that I do not recommend going to tournaments if you're just starting out Magic generally. If you want to have a good time, play at home. But if you're like me, and once you get into a hobby, you get weirdly deep into it and you get really competitive, you might want to go to a tournament straight away. Like, I don't know, that's how I am, that's how other people partially are.
And there's this, it's not that bad. Like, you will expect to lose a few of your games, but there's nothing that motivates you more to play better and more often than wanting to become the best.
Yes.
It's the whole premise of Pokemon.
It is.
It fueled a whole generation of Pokemon trainers.
If you go in there with a mindset of growth, of personal growth, learning stuff, you will lose a bunch, but you'll also rapidly improve. If you're in it for the competitive side, grab yourself the cheapest standard deck, which is usually mono red, put it through the Cardmarket shopping wizard and grab all the cards. That will be more expensive than anything else we've listed so far in this video, but it will allow you to win some matches in a tournament setting. And if you're not quite there yet, but you do want to attend like standard tournaments, maybe at your LGS or something, then go for one of the challenger decks they released. They're about like 15 euros, 20 euros, something in that range. And they give you something to play with. It will not be as optimized as like online deck lists, but it will be something to play at a tournament.
2 websites I'd recommend for this are mtgdecks.net, which you can just go in the standard metagame. You can find recently built standard decks, because you will never build a standard deck as well as some of the people who do it every day.
You won't.
Same thing for mtggoldfish.com. They make excellent content and have a metagame deck page that is constantly updated with new lists.
And that does it. That's our recommendations. Depending on your situation that you're in, the kind of gameplay you're looking for, pick the best version to introduce your friends or yourself to Magic. Treat yourself, introduce yourself to Magic. Also, there are some products that we couldn't fit into the video, but that are weirdly cheap for the gameplay experience they offer. Some sealed booster packs, some pre-constructed decks. We'll link all of those in an Insight article linked in the top comment below. So if you're into that, go check that out. And if you'd like to learn more about Pauper, click that video on the right.
If you'd like to play Brainstorm competitively, click the video on the right. Subscribers play Ephemerate.
That doesn't make sense to anyone.
Those are all Pauper cards, they're very good.